Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyden. Taking a look at tonight's slate. Kershaw Day, you got Verlander on the hill. Sadly, no Bartolo Colon, who turned back the clock last night.
He put in like a vintage, big, sexy performance, and he did it against the team that I stacked. So me and Big Sexy are not on speaking terms at the moment.
Didn't I say 8 base runners is what he was going to allow?
I
I
think
think
he,
that's what he did.
I think you said he was gonna no hit him.
I just watching that game was so tilting last night. Between that and then I needed like a little extra out of Goldie and Pollock late, and like them not doing anything in extras was tilting.
Yeah, I knew my night was pretty much over whenever Lewis Brinson tried to bunt to start the game and was out on hitter interference. At that point I was like, my night. That's a bad sign for my night. I'm just done.
Especially, you were bold calling a leadoff dong too.
Yeah, I had that one a little bit wrong. Apparently, they wanted to lead off bunt for God knows what reason. I don't know, but yeah, that was just a bad sign for me.
Not fun. Tonight's slate, not too bad here. We'll start off with Chicago and Toronto. J.A. Happ taking on Miguel Gonzalez. J.A. Happ, he's such a weird guy to stack against. Like he doesn't allow a ton of blows, but I still kind of like some of these right-handed bats here for Chicago.
Yeah, I don't mind a few of them. Like obviously, people that are going to look at his game logs are going to see that his last game wasn't that good, but that was kind of spoiled by a Granderson error, and then the bullpen inherited a runner and let them score. So he actually put up a solid game in a really bad matchup against the Yankees. I don't know. The White Sox are a good team against left-handed pitching. Obviously, you have Beef that went yard a couple times. He's been really pesky against the Blue Jays over the past couple seasons, but I do think there is a little bit of potential for Hap to be a solid tournament option here. So I don't necessarily mind rolling him out in tournaments, but on the flip side, I think Davidson, Abreu, Castillo, those guys are very interesting tournament hitters as well.
Yeah, I do too, and that's kind of where I'm looking, more so for tournaments here. I think I'm siding a little bit more with the bats. I don't mind Hap. I think it's an interesting call. I think after last night, like Chicago is going to be pretty low owned as far as, especially comparing them to a couple other offenses here. So you should be able to get them probably around outside of maybe Castillo. Guys like Abreu and Davidson, I think, will drop down as far as ownership goes pretty exclusively.
Yeah, especially when we're going to get some of these other bats that are in really solid spots. So definitely solid tournament options. And I think Castillo is cash viable. Like I said, he's just been really, really solid against left-handed pitching. And over his like the last 9 games or something like that against the Blue Jays in Toronto, he's gotten yard like 5 times.
Yeah, that signed me up there. Toronto side here, I like a lot. Looking at Miguel Gonzalez, this is a guy who obviously struggled last year. Fly ball pitcher, had some major blow up games. Maybe I'm a little bit intrigued because Donaldson had that homer. Maybe he's not as bad as what we think he is given his health, but I'm kind of just expecting some bounce back spots here, like Granderson for how cheap he is and the power he has against right-handers. Like I like this front five a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Obviously Donaldson went yard last night, and Gonzalez is not a very good pitcher. He's not like a terrible pitcher. He's just kind of an innings eater. So I do like the Toronto guys here, starting with Donaldson. I would expect him to be a popular option, but he's still very fairly priced across the industry. Granderson, you mentioned, he's an excellent value option. Smoke is in a good spot, and even Young Jarvis Solarte, who is a guy that just doesn't strike out very much. Hasn't really put up a bunch of solid outings, but like he's one of the best value shortstop options on today's slate, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like just looking, like I think there's stacking potential. They're featured in my stacking article. Just because you look at Gonzalez, like you said, like he was a guy who was kind of frustrating to stack against because he would have those starts where he'd go like 6 innings and only allow like 2 to 3 earned runs. But he also had a couple starts. I mean, last season, 5 or more earned runs in 7 starts. 2 of those starts he had 6+. 2 of those had 7+. 11 home runs over those 7 starts. Like he had some really bad outings. He also struggled a lot outside of Chicago.
Yeah, he kind of did, and let's see, in his career against the Blue Jays, 7-4, 3.63 ERA. So he has pitched fairly solid against them, but he has had obviously spots where he's blown up. And Donaldson, 4 for 12 with 3 RBIs against him. So there's a BVP play for you.
Yeah, and I don't mind him here. Like, given his price has dropped a little bit, and I think obviously a lot of people are still concerned about the shoulder, which I mean I am. But I think in a stack here, like rolling out a Donaldson Smokes, Larte Granderson isn't that bad.
Yeah, and you can even sprinkle in like if you wanted to get some some exposure to some of the guys towards the bottom of the order, Grichuk, Martin, PR, and Diaz who homered last night. You could even do that.
Yep, for sure. I'm assuming you don't have any interest in Gonzalez here.
No, I don't.
Philly, New York. Got a replay of yesterday's game. Obviously, given it was snowed out. Kind of the same.
We may have it.
May have it. I mean, same. Now it's what, rain going through.
Rain and like they still haven't cleared the snow, so
yeah. Kind of the same thing goes for yesterday. Like, I'm not really looking to use either of these pitchers. I think one-off bats are fine, but this is just still not a game I'm expecting a ton of production from, and I don't know how much upside is even there with these pitchers either.
Yeah, I'm not touching either of these pitchers. Same thing we said yesterday. Like, there's just no reason to go near any of these pitchers, and I would be more inclined to stack the bats here. And I would start with Philly side of things, especially some of the lefties. Matt Harvey last season, 2.68 homers per nine to left-handed hitters. Carlos Santana would be a great option to start with. You can get some Nick Williams, Odubel Herrera, sprinkle in some Rhys Hoskins if you want to. I think Santana, Hoskins are my two favorite, and then like Caesar's in a good spot. And Kingery, if he gets in the lineup, hasn't shown any power yet, but he's been a solid bat so far to start the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I think if I'm looking on the Mets side, I mean, I like the lefties. I don't mind using like a Jay Bruce or Nemo there, but I think Cespedes is also an interesting one-off. Probably just taking the major names here. I don't feel like I'm going to really dive into any of the Mets' true value.
I don't mind someone like Asdrubal Cabrera batting 4 for 9 over the last two games. He crushed the Phillies last year, 406 with 4 homers and 13 RBIs against them last season. He would be a guy that I would have a little bit of interest in. Let's see, he is second base on DraftKings at 3,300. That's a pretty solid price for him.
Yeah, definitely not bad. But really, it is that front four for the Mets side.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe even, I guess, even, let me see, where if Juan Lagares is projected in the lineup.
I don't see him here.
I don't see him projected in the lineup. If he gets in there, he'd be someone that I would look at as well. He's been hitting pretty well to start the season.
Yep. Washington, Atlanta here. AJ Cole take on Julio Teheran. It's Bryce Harper day. Everyone's going to toss out the BVP numbers against him, but also he's just been red hot. His last, I forget what bats it was, 8 or 9 have been either home runs or walks.
Yeah, it's ignoring the BVP. It's just left-handers versus Julio Teheran, and I guess left-handers versus AJ Cole today, because AJ Cole might be worse versus lefties than Teheran is. But yeah, just load up on Harper. It would be pretty dumb to fade him. I think even in tournaments, there's enough value on this slate today to get him, plus Trout or someone else that we're going to talk about later. So Bryce Harper, obviously the top play from this game, but Adam Eaton has been feasting recently. I would be hard pressed to fade him in this spot. I mean, we're talking about a guy in the first 3 games he sat the last game, but 7, 40, and 21 fantasy points. He's been mashing the ball recently. 1.874 OPS to start the season, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, some very solid numbers, and he should be back in the leadoff role now that he's going to be back in the lineup today.
Yeah, no, I like that call there, and I don't even mind like using a Nat stack or like working in some Rendon and Zimmerman, just because if Teheran does struggle, and it's not like Teheran was dominant against righties last year, he's pretty much average against them, and like if you're looking at Teheran gets knocked out early, I don't think a lot of people are going to be looking at the rest of this Nationals lineup. I think a lot of them are just going to be focusing on the lefties. So I think obviously guys like Harper not going to be contrarian. Eaton might be a little bit less owned, but guys like Rendon and Zimmerman I think are decent even with the slow starts to the year.
I would not be shocked to see Matt Adams get in the lineup.
Oh baby.
Potentially over Zimmerman or someone like that, and he would be like a lock for me. I would love to get some Matt Adams, and with Matt Wieters on the DL, Miguel Montero should get in the lineup, and he is pretty much minimum salary across the industry. A lefty against Teheran, has some pretty solid numbers against lefties. I think he's your value plug at catcher today.
Yeah, I like that call there. Didn't know some of those bench guys because they have Brian Goodwin too. He had left or hit righties pretty well last year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, definitely interesting to keep an eye on that lineup, see what other lefties pop in there because they're obviously in a great spot.
yeah, for sure. I would expect to see a bunch of lefties in this lineup.
Yep. No interest in Tehran here.
Nope.
Other side of things here, you mentioned like AJ Cole, obviously limited sample, but it has really shown some huge struggles with lefties. And once again, this is not a lineup to do that with.
No, because there's a lot of lefties in this lineup, starting with Ender Inciarte, Ozzy Albies, switch hitter, Freddie Freeman, lefty, Nick Markakis, lefty, Preston Tucker, lefty. Oh, Dansby Swanson, he's a righty. But after that, we get Ryan Flaherty, another lefty, and then maybe another righty at catcher. But you can load up on Braves. You can actually just double stack the crap out of this game because it could end up being a pretty high scoring affair. Um, Obviously, no issues with any of the guys in that top four of the lineup. Freeman's probably going to get like 4 walks today, and then probably get stranded because Nick Markakis is a giant tool when it comes to knocking in Freddie Freeman. But I prefer Preston Tucker, and I think Ryan Flaherty is an excellent value option. He's been hitting really, really, really well to start the season.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I like Ozzy Albies here in cash games. Like I don't mind him at second base at his price.
Yeah, he's fine too.
So, moving on, St. Louis and Milwaukee. You got Flaherty making a start here. You got Chase Anderson on the other side. Flaherty's a guy, obviously a highly kind of top prospect here for St. Louis. Struggles a little bit with lefties. I want to so bad, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull the trigger. It's going to be tough here against this Brewers lineup because just looking through them, I mean, that's a tough lineup to get through here for Flaherty.
I think you might be underselling his struggles against lefties just a little bit. I mean, we're talking 3.72 home runs per 9, 448 WOBA allowed, 34% hard contact, 13% strikeout rate against him. Might be underselling those struggles just a little.
I know, but I mean, those numbers can't hold. Those are just insane. He's got to come back down a little bit here. Obviously, even if he regressed a lot, it would still not be good. But I mean, obviously, I'm prioritizing Milwaukee lefties over Flaherty, but I think I might have to do at least one single bullet with him.
He does have some pretty electric stuff when we're talking about his pitch arsenal. So I don't mind taking a tournament shot if you're building a bunch of lineups, but I'm definitely interested in these left-handed bats for Milwaukee, and even Low Kane towards the top of that order, just because he's smoking the ball to start the season. He would be someone that I wouldn't mind. But Kane, Yelich, Shaw, Thames should be in the lineup. Jonathan VR down towards the bottom of the lineup is an interesting option. I think Shaw is probably my favorite, though.
Yeah, I like him here quite a bit. And I think Eric Thames is an interesting GPP play just because you look at Flaherty, like he threw a slider quite a bit, 25% of the time last year. Thames, 377 WOBA, 362 ice. So obviously he did whiff a lot, but when he made contact on that slider, which was still a decent amount, and he punished him.
He punishes everything he makes contact with. So
it's about making contact, huh?
It's pretty much about making the contact. But yeah, I do like him as a tournament option.
Yeah. And like you said, like Shaw, you look at Yelich, some of these guys. I don't really have any interest in the back end of the Brewers here tonight.
Outside of someone like VR, that'd be about it.
Yeah. St. Louis going up against Chase Anderson. What are your thoughts on Chase Anderson here? Like, I feel like he might be a little bit popular, but like I think my issue with him is kind of the price tag.
Yeah, I actually think he's going to be a little bit lower owned just because you're looking in the same price range as like Justin Verlander for like 1,500 more. You can pretty much get up to him. And I don't know. I like him in the spot. Obviously, the Cardinals have been striking out a decent amount. They've started to hit the ball better over the last few games. And obviously, this is a decent hitting environment. So that does concern me. But Anderson's a guy. He's got a solid strikeout arsenal, 23% strikeout rate last season, 10% swinging strike rate. Decent ground ball stuff to right-handed hitters. I don't know. I kind of like him in tournaments here. I think this is a spot where he could put up a solid outing.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind tournaments. Like I still have an interest in some of these St. Louis bats. I do think like guys like Martinez and Ozuna are interesting and like Tommy Pham, but they're all probably one-offs for me, like just tournament one-offs. That's kind of how I see the power. It's a decent ballpark to hit in. But overall, I mean, Anderson, he's a guy who will allow a little bit of fly ball contact in this park. That kind of does scare me, even though he was fairly solid here last year.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Ozuna. I do kind of like him even as as a one-off here. 6 for 14 with a double against Anderson. Solid BVP numbers if you're into BVP. But I just like the fact that he's not a huge strikeout guy. Has a decent amount of pop. So I do like him a little bit. And Yadier Molina has been pretty solid to start the season. Well, 5 for 16 with 2 homers. He's hit safely in 9 straight games against the Braves. So you're getting a guy that should at least get you some points.
What about Paul DeDong?
Paul, the triple dong so far. I don't know. Like I don't necessarily like him. I mean, does strike out a ton, but if you believe in hot hands, he's a hot hand right now.
Yeah, he is, and I kind of feel like maybe recency bias is going to drive up that ownership, which is what I would worry about with him.
Yeah, it probably will.
Yeah, so that's concerning. But yeah, I mean, obviously, riding hot hand, he did have a 233 ISO against righties, so obviously it's not a fluke, but you don't expect anything more here.
No.
Baltimore, Houston, Justin Verlander taking on Mike Wright. Houston's just going to be in prime hitting. I'm already kind of sick of talking about Houston bats already.
I'm sick of talking about Houston bats, and I'm sick of talking about pitchers versus the Orioles. You just play them.
Is Verlander your favorite here on
Yeah.
tonight's slate, even over Kershaw?
Yeah, even over Kershaw.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think the strikeout upside is far too high. The fact that you get a little bit of discount still from Verlander to Kershaw, I think I'm locking in Verlander pretty much everywhere. GPPs, cash games. I don't care about ownership here. Like, I just feel like he has the safest floor on the board. I mean, this Baltimore team is striking out a ton and dead last in about everything so far to start the year.
Yeah, they got a little hot last night. You know, Mancini hitting a home run. But I mean, we're still talking about they're still striking out 27% of the time to start the season, and at 35 weighted runs created plus, that's really, really bad. And just for a reference point, league average WRC plus is 100. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just like you look and there's 5 hitters in this lineup with a 25% strikeout rate or higher against righties. I look at that back half and it's like, yes, those guys have pop, but Rasmus, Beckham, Pedro Alvarez, Joseph, like that strikeout heaven right there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you do get Rasmus in a revenge game, so there's that. If you believe in revenge games for baseball, but there's so many strikeouts in that lineup, and there's only like 2 guys that you really worry about, and that's Machado and Adam Jones, and the rest of them are just guys that are just going to swing at a ton of stuff.
Yeah, and looking at like Verlander's first start, like he looked pretty solid to start the year. That velocity was still sitting about 95. Yeah, favorite option on the board. Like I'm paying him for him everywhere. And it basically like I don't have any interest in Baltimore bats here as one-offs at all.
No, I don't either. Just no reason to really go there.
No. Let me look at Houston. Like it's going to be the same thing here. I guess the only thing to kind of note is Carlos Correa left the game yesterday with an injury. I think to his big toe. Kind of killed some stacks if you played Correa. But if he's in the lineup, obviously his front 4 is good to go. Obviously Marwin Gonzalez can play about anywhere. So would be curious to see what they do with that lineup if Correa sits.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do. Who took – let me look and see because I didn't watch that game. Who took his place?
I want to say Marwin rolled over to short. I don't remember who came in.
You look, Marwin's the guy. Like while I'm looking that up, Marwin's the guy that I have a lot of interest in today. Obviously, we liked him yesterday going up against another right-hander, and he's going up against one today. A decent amount of pop against them last season. Homered yesterday, 227 ISO is what he has against righties. And Mike Wright is a guy that gave up 42% hard contact to right-handed hitters and 35% to left-handed hitters. It is a good spot, and it looks like J.D. Davis took his place.
Yeah, that's right. That's what came in.
Yeah, so there would be a value option for you if Correa does sit, but it's definitely Marwin is going to be a guy that I have a lot of interest in as a one-off if I'm not stacking the Astros.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I like Josh Reddick here as well. Like, still a solid value, and then of course, like These guys are always going to be in play. Bregman, Springer, Altuve, and I don't mind taking a catcher here, but I'd probably look at McCann in tournaments here, just given that Ray does struggle against lefties, and that hard contact is interesting here. So even at the bottom of the lineup, I don't mind McCann and tourneys.
Yeah, and Reddick finally got it going yesterday with a run, and 2 walks. So apparently typing "I will get a hit" repeatedly into Twitter worked for him and Dexter Fowler. So you can go there. Even someone like Fisher batting towards the bottom of that lineup, he'd be someone to look at. Maybe Jake Marisnik, if they go with him over Fisher, would be someone to look at. I think I have more interest in Marwin in the bottom of that lineup as more of like a way to be contrarian while still getting exposure to the Astros.
Yeah, I agree. And then you're attacking with the majority of those lefties as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So LA and Arizona, you got Clayton Kershaw going with Zach Godley. Still no signs of the humidor yet.
Yeah, no signs of the humidor, and Kershaw's velocity is down, so I just don't know how you can play him. Like, you just have to fade him in the spot. No velocity, his velocity's down, the humidor. It's just such a bad spot for Kershaw. You just can't play him here.
And for those who don't understand the sarcastic tones of Brent here, very good on the sarcasm. But with that being said, like I don't love him here. Like I like him, but I don't love him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's Kershaw. It's the same as like NBA. It's like Russell Westbrook versus James Harden in NBA. Like they're all good plays. There's really nothing you can say about him that's going to make him better. If you want to play him, play him. I will say though, like I don't necessarily like, or I should say, I don't necessarily love the matchup for him here. This Diamondbacks team has been pretty hot to start the season. They do still have some strikeout potential in that lineup though. So if you want to take a shot on him, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely go for it. Like I said, we prefer Verlander here, and probably going a cheaper option as far as SP2. Like I don't see yourself going like a Verlander Kershaw lineup on DK, but yeah, like I'm going Verlander. I don't know how much exposure I'll really have to Kershaw here tonight. It's just a wash for me. Like I don't really like Arizona bats. Like the bats I would take are just they're still priced up.
Yeah, the only ones that I would really look at if you're just wanting value and hoping that they can get on or get a hit against Kershaw or whatever would be Ketel Marte or Nick Ahmed.
Knew it. Nick Ahmed's homer tonight for sure.
He probably is. Dude just continues to be solid and he continues to rake. So not someone that I would necessarily be afraid of like a one-off with. I mean, he's 2,900 over on DraftKings. I would love to be able to check on FanDuel, but I can't log into my account. So there's that, but he'd be a good value option, I think.
Yeah, and if one of your guys doesn't have a home run, he's entering the bottom of the ninth against Kenley Jensen, you might get a home run.
Yeah, because his velocity's down too.
This is not a good start. There's definitely some concerning signs for the Dodgers. But yeah, Kershaw here, like once again, play him, but that's about it. Like Dodgers side here, I kind of like Godley as a contrarian option, but the problem is like he's going up against Kershaw, which I don't love, but like this Dodgers team, I mean, yeah, they broke out a little bit against Walker last night. We saw Grandal get a homer, a couple other guys hit the ball well, but Godley wasn't bad against lefties. That ground ball rate's still something I like. I mean, he was 62% against left-handers last year. He can mix up some strikeout stuff. I kind of like him. Like I know one game here is for the Dodgers is finally kind of breaking out, but overall they've been pretty bad to start the year, and there's still a ton of strikeouts.
Yeah, they have, and there are a decent amount of strikeouts in that lineup. I don't know that I would use him on DraftKings just at his price. It's one of those situations where I can comfortably get up to Chase Anderson for 1,100 more, or I can just drop down to someone like Kyle Freeland or Happ. FanDuel is a different story over 7,500. I don't necessarily hate the spot for him. As you mentioned, the Dodgers have still been striking out a decent amount. He does have a pretty nasty curveball that he throws a decent amount of the time. It's a solid – I think it's a decent spot for him in tournaments. Not someone you can look at in cash, though.
Yeah, definitely. And but I don't know really where to attack if I am looking at Dodgers bats. I mean, I think you can always look at the one-off lefties like Bellinger and Corey Seager, and if Jock is hitting leadoff again, like I'll be interested. But that's kind of about it.
Puig, Bellinger would be the two guys that I would kind of look at. Both have some pop against the curveball. Chris Taylor, solid against sinkers, which is another pitch that Godley throws a decent amount, and maybe some Grandal who's been hitting the cover off the ball since like basically the first spring training game.
Yeah, he has, and hitting cleanup yesterday. I mean, a good spot there for a catcher.
Yeah, if you're getting a catcher in a good park, batting cleanup that's been like on fire, I don't necessarily think you can fade him.
No. Anyone else from that one?
No.
Texas and Oakland here tonight. Cole Hamels and Kendall Graveman. Both these pitchers, I feel like, can be viable in those spots, just because big ballpark, two offenses that I don't expect a ton out of here tonight. I guess I don't mind either, and I feel like I'm a little bit higher on Hamels than I am on Graveman.
Are you sure you're not just being a little biased because Bartolo like no hit the A's last night?
I did start off my Hamels write up with maybe I'm just going overboard here because I did watch Cologne throw 6 solid innings, but I kind of liked what I saw. Like obviously Hamels was very wild to begin the season against Houston, but 7 strikeouts was encouraging. Was missing some bats. This Oakland team, yes, they're going to put some right-handed bats in. Yes, there's some power, and I feel like their numbers from last year are a little bit misleading against lefties because you obviously have guys like Semien who do have better track records against right-handers, same with like Piscotty and Chris Davis. So there is some right-handed pop. There is obviously some current concern. Hamels obviously didn't even pitch well against them last year in 2 starts. So there's not a lot that there is to go with for Hamels, but I still think there's strikeout upside against this team.
There you go.
It's total boomer bust here for Hamels.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree there. It'd be a situation where, again, not something that you would even touch in cash games, but if you're wanting to be different in tournaments, go for it. I think on the other side, though, I think I would rather roll Graveman just because you're getting him like dirt cheap, 5,800 over on DraftKings. FanDuel, there's really no reason to even go down that cheap at pitcher, because there's just so much value already, and you can get Verlander and some of these other guys. But on SP2 sites, I do like Graveman. He's a decent ground ball guy. A little bit of swing and miss at times. This Rangers team, as you alluded to yesterday, really struggles on the road. Graveman's been great against them in the past few matchups. I think he's a very viable SP2 and pretty much all formats today.
Yeah, I do too. And you kind of look at stuff and be like, oh, what about all the lefties against the righties? And Graveman was decent against lefties, held him to under 300 WOBA last year. That ground ball rate's still decent. Yeah, I don't mind him here because I really don't like a single Texas bat. Like, there isn't even a one-off I can really get excited about outside of maybe Gallo, of course.
Yeah, it'd be pretty much Gallo as a home run kind of bat. But I mean, like I said, this team's still striking out like 28.8% of the time this season. It's just I don't really it's one of those situations where, like, so far this season I've been taking pitchers against the Orioles and it's paid off every single day, and taking pitchers against the Rangers and it's been paying off. So I'm just gonna keep on doing it until it quits working.
Yeah, I'm with you. Oakland bats, like, I don't mind getting some exposure to like Piscotty or Chris Davis or like Semien and stuff, and Smolinski should find himself in the lineup. He's hit lefties well in his career. So, like, you have some options. Like, if I'm making a Hamels lineup, I might make an A's lineup to kind of cover myself a little bit here.
Yeah, I think Chris Davis, obviously, you want to talk about here. He's been put up solid numbers excuse me, against lefties in his career, but you mentioned he's historically kind of been better against righties, but still decent numbers. 234 ISO last season against left-handed pitchers. Hit 3 home runs and driven in 5 runs versus Hamels in his career. Pitch profile matches up really well with what Hamels throws. I like Davis even as like a one-off, and even some maybe Jonathan Lucroy, who was able to get on base and get a couple hits last night.
Yeah, and I think Chad Pinder's projected to be in the lineup. He has a decent success against Hamels as well.
Yeah, I think he's like, 3 for 3 with – what did I see? I know I saw like a couple home runs in there. Let me pull it up again.
Yeah, he definitely had some extra base hits and home runs for sure.
Chad Pinder, 4 at-bats, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs, and a 1,000 batting average.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can definitely get some exposure. I feel like that's kind of one big tournament game. Well, except you mentioned Graveman. I don't mind him in cash as SP2.
Yeah.
LA and Cleveland, Josh Tomlin taking on Garrett Richards. For the record, I hate Josh Tomlin. Absolutely hate him. And some of this is personally my bias, but he does suck. Like, Tomlin sucks.
I think a lot of people kind of hate Josh Tomlin. Baseballs probably hate him because they get hit really hard whenever Josh Tomlin is pitching, and he gives up a lot of home runs. So I think there's going to be some balls flying out of this park tonight.
I do too, and I Angels were one of my three stacks. I like an Angels stack here. Um, I especially love like Zach Cozart and Mike Trout here. Just especially, and Justin Upton as well. Albert Pujols, Cole Kelly, I'm a little bit off of, but obviously you can use in stacks and stuff. But front three here, like I'm absolutely enamored with tonight.
Yeah, I love Cozart. Like he's a guy that I'm pretty much locking into my lineup in this spot. He's hit right-handed pitching really well. Hit, I think he's actually hit Josh Tomlin really, really well. But 251 ISO, 11 or 16% strikeout rate for this last season against right-handed pitching. Starting the season off really well. Hits curveballs extremely well, which is something that Tomlin throws a decent amount. Mike Trout, 1.091 ISO against cutters, which is something that Tomlin throws a lot. Yeah.
And Upton's out there with it. Like the cutter, that's where I was waiting ahead. Like he threw that over 30% last year, and that's why I'm enamored with his front three is because all three of those guys just absolute monster numbers against cutters.
Yeah, Justin Upton, 579 ISO against it. Yeah. Even though Upton's probably going to strike out 3 of the 4 times he comes up to bat, he's probably going to hit a home run the 4th. So
Come on, why you gotta be like that?
dude struck out 30.2% of the time, so it's just math, man.
It is true. He did strike out a ton. I think this is the night where the Angels pop off and put up a ton of runs and front five there, like definitely one of my favorite stacks on the slate. Like I mentioned that I wasn't in love with Pujols or Calhoun, but I think they're definitely viable.
Pujols viable, Calhoun viable, Andrelton Simmons starting the season off batting 450, 5-game hitting streak. He's viable. Valbuena, Marte, Maldonado, anyone in that lineup's viable against Josh Tomlin.
Yeah. What do you think of Richards against the Indians here? Like, it's kind of a wash here for me. Like, I'm not really looking to use Richards. I'm going to probably take a wait and see approach over his next, start or two. But I don't necessarily love Cleveland bats.
I don't necessarily love him either. I don't mind taking a shot on maybe an Edwin or Encarnacion or Yonder Alonso just is mashing the ball recently, but I'm not looking at Richards here, and I'm not necessarily looking to stack against him either.
No, he's got some decent stuff against lefties. Like, still has a pretty high ground ball rate against some strikeout rates decent too. So I'm not thrilled. And I don't really like, because if Richards only goes 5 or 6, obviously you get a bat or two at the bullpen, but I'm not really planning on that for Cleveland.
Yeah, for sure. And how about that Tyler Naquin guy?
Oh man, when that happened, I was surprised. I was kind of like, my phone better not light up right now or I'm going to lose it. That was just a game all around. Alonso homer, and then Encarnacion inside the Parker.
Yeah, but Jose Ramirez still nothing.
Well, does he have a Twitter? He's got a tweet.
Yeah, tweet out, I will get a hit, I will get a hit, I will get a hit.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely fine with those one-off calls that you made. But overall, I'm expecting much more on the Angels side.
Yeah, for sure.
Colorado and San Diego, Kyle Freeland taking on Tyson Ross. It was a decent high-scoring game here last night. I kind of feel same with the Colorado side. Like, I don't mind taking one-offs, with like a Blackman or Arenado there. That's about it. Like Tyson Ross, if you haven't played DFS before, he's a guy who did struggle against lefties for the most part of his career, but big-time ground ball pitcher. Walks is usually his biggest issue.
Yeah, walks are a huge issue for him. Not 100% sure how deep he's going to go into this game. He pitched about 15 innings in spring training. He looked pretty good in spring training, so I will give him that much. But he was a guy at first I was like, I don't necessarily mind maybe getting some exposure to just because he's dirt cheap. And then, like, the Rockies drove in like 1 million runs last night, and they've hit, I think, 10 home runs to start the season, and they haven't even played in Coors. So I'm kind of thinking Tyson Ross not my guy tonight.
No, I don't think so. And I think you can go back and get some sneakier exposure to Colorado. I still don't think this is going to be a side that's popular, and I don't mind getting some of these guys here in tournaments.
I will say I think I've seen, and I like to click around when I see people post articles about DFS and whatnot. I will say that I have seen a couple articles writing up the Rockies as a stack. So might end up getting them a little bit chalkier, but I don't mind it. Like you mentioned, Blackman, dude, 6 for 14 over his last 3 games. Ian Desmond loves homering in Petco for some reason. He's homered 5 times in 11 games at Petco since joining the Rockies last season or prior to last season. I wouldn't mind taking a shot on some of these guys, even in tournaments.
Oh, I wouldn't either. What about the San Diego side here? What about Freeland? I mean, how comfortable are you with Freeland tonight?
On FanDuel, if for some reason you're wanting to pay down, go for it because he's really really cheap. He's one of the 5K pitchers there. On DraftKings at his current price, I would maybe get a little tournament exposure just because the Padres do strike out a ton against left-handed pitching. That being said, I don't know that he actually has the strikeout potential that he showed last season. He struck out. He had what 20 or 15% strikeout rate, 7.5% swinging strike rate. He had a couple of games where he struck out like six, I think 6 and 8 batters, and then the rest were pretty crappy. I He might be viable on FanDuel, but not on DraftKings.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like the price just it does throw me off, and I kind of said that about a few guys on DK. That's kind of how it's been so far this year. But I mean, I don't mind him. Like I still kind of like a couple of bats against him. Like the only thing that really he has going for me that I see is just that ground ball rate against righties. Other than that, like he hasn't been too strong in numbers. If Myers is in the lineup, I know he's a little bit banged up with that elbow. I have some interest in here. Outside of that, though, like not a ton here. I mean, they'll probably toss in like a Renfro to the power here. Perella had some decent power in a small sample size. Like, I guess I don't mind some of the one-offs here for the Padres, but I'm not thrilled.
Yeah, I would be looking at like Renfro, Villanueva, Perella, Manuel Margot, some of these guys that have power against lefties. I don't mind taking a shot, maybe stacking Padres if you're wanting to get some late game exposure. That would be kind of how I would do it, but they're not anyone that I'm necessarily like trying to force in my lineups. Just kind of tournament options or late contest stacks.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for us. What do you got home run wise for tonight?
Chalk, I am going to go Bryce Harper. And low owned, I'm going to go Fat Adams.
Oh, I like that. For me, could be Justin Smoke is, I guess, my chalkier guy. I don't know how chalky he'll be, but I like him for a home run. And then as far as cheap, let's see here. Is Thames contrarian enough? That you're the judge here.
I'll allow it. I don't think he'll be super contrarian, but I'll allow it.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Since I took one that's pretty much a lock, I'll give you one that's pretty much a lock.
All right. I went like 2 mid-range, so I think that kind of evens out. So
there you go.
That's it for us. You can go to dayfantasycafe.com. You can check out cheat sheets, also both articles up for the site, and good luck.
Good luck.